Hi. I was commissioned into the Royal Artillery in 1966 as a short service officer, and I went through a place called Mons Officer Cadet School in Aldershot, which was just down the road from Sandhurst. In the same room that I shared, barrack room, there were 12 of us, included 2 from Africa, Prince Alexander of Yugoslavia and David Bowes-Lyon, who was the Queen's mother's nephew. So it was an interesting little selection of people. Of course, Alex, as we knew him, is now King of Serbia. I think 1 or 2 of the others may have been hanging from a lamppost in a coup in Africa, but it's a variety of people. And we went through hell for 4 months and then were commissioned. The first of my mates went straight to Aden and came back 6 weeks later with a military cross. I went to learn all about artillery and ended up in Germany, where we had a standing army of 65,000, which is nearly the size of the British Army today. And well, we just sat there and waited for something to happen that never did. But that, of course, we went and sat out in the German countryside for weeks on end, training for a war that never happened and never would. It's a very different life, but it's a fantastic life. You can live there with your family, but you're married to Mrs. Queen, and the rest comes second. The worst year we had was I was away 39 weeks of the year. The families actually come together in a very close relationship. You're thrown together, but the actual spirit of you working and living together as soldiers is something that is quite unique. You might not like each other, but you look after each other. You're brothers, but even if you're not mates, or you're mates if you're not brothers. And as I say, the families have to accept that. Most of them do, some of them don't, some of them can't. Some of them are the usual, where the soldier goes home on leave, he's 19 years old, he goes out with his mates and he comes back married to a woman with 2 children already, and says, can we have a house? The next day he's standing on a street corner, or he's in Afghanistan or the Falklands getting bombed, shot at, whatever, and the only thing that matters to him then is to go home and look after his mates either side of him, and that's what the whole thing's about. It's a wonderful, wonderful state to be in. You're also living on the fast lane the whole time. I think I'm a bit like the Rolling Stones in Mick Jagger once said, I get paid for doing this. And it was a bit like that in the army. We had the most amazing fun, travelling all over the world and training, doing adventure training. And of course the whole thing was interrupted by Northern Ireland, which really was one of the nastiest bits of thing that we've been involved in. And I was stationed in a unit in Hampshire one summer where we were stood down, and then one Saturday night when the sergeant's mess ball was in full chat, all hell let loose in Ireland, and we were there the next morning. We were in Palace Barracks in Hollywood. 32 reserve companies. I don't even know a company is 100 men lined up on a massive barrack square. And then El Alamein started down the road. Bang, crash, wallop went on, and they all started pulling out. We were the last ones left, and then we were told, go now. You can imagine what we thought. The night before we'd been drinking and dancing, and then we were heading into Belfast. We went straight into a place where somebody just been shot from a church tower, and we were being pinged at the top of a church tower. How I managed to get into a shop doorway with all the kit on, I'll still never know. But we went there for a week, stayed 4 months, and it was one of the most eye-opening, horrendous times that you can imagine, where it's like being blindfolded and have your arms tied behind your back whilst being shot at. I think the worst one was when we were in a street. The women came up the street protesting with their children, and they parted and a machine gun was behind it, who opened up on us, and then they went back together again. The other worst one was found an old man at midnight standing outside his house with a hammer in his hand. He was blind, he was about 90 years old. And we said, "What's up, Dad?" And he said, "I can't afford to pay the junior IRA and they're coming back to burn my house down." So there was a couple of the things. The funniest thing was when we found a dead body in the middle of the Springfield Road. We carted him into the police station, and then we laid him out cold, and thought, there we are, another body. Sent for the local constable, who came in, and there was a scream, and we rushed in, and the body had sat up. He was just dead drunk. So we had to cart the policeman off for therapy. Certainly, I left before I had to. I saw the writing on the wall of redundancies and cutbacks, and I left and went into business. I must say, the first few weeks in business, I had to be taken aside and be told it isn't war, it's business. You don't have to attack everyone else, you don't have to defeat them, all you have to do is promote your own business. So that was very different. I think for many people, certainly people I help these days, you join at 17, I joined at 19, you come out 12, 16, 22, 30 years later, and you actually haven't been in society, but you've been in a society that is very vigorous and everybody helps each other, and you come out into something where nobody helps each other, and vigour is a thing that you occasionally see but not very often, and it's very hard for a lot of them to cope, especially when you've got a routine all day. You've got a timetable in barracks, you've got work to do when you're not in barracks. It's very hard for a lot of people to adjust. And that's why a lot of them sleep rough, a lot of them walk the countryside, and the prison population is full of ex-veterans who transgress because they don't know any better.